Welcome back to another episode of Think So, I'll Take It From Here, a podcast where we talk about the stories that made us feel something. Now, whether that was last week or 20 years ago, because today we are talking about Passport to Paris. So I just rewatched this movie for the first time in probably like 2 decades. And I need to start by saying I remembered maybe 40% of what actually happened. Right? Like, it's been a hot minute. Like, of course, I remember like the basic stuff. So Paris, the outfits, the French boys, but my brain deleted like half of the other plot. Because what I did not remember was the police, the supermodel with multiple degrees, or Mary-Kate and Ashley basically doing Greta Thunberg's job 4 years before Homegirl was even born. Like, I just completely forgot that. The entire section of that movie was apparently just deleted from my brain. So I want to go through Passport to Paris because watching this as an adult was such a different experience. I feel like there are things that are still really cute. I think there are moments that are absolutely ridiculous. And just the whole international diplomacy plot that I swear I had no memory of whatsoever was just making this viewing filled with so much joy and so much fun to rewatch. So let's talk about how the movie opens, right? So Passport to Paris opens with a globe, and the girls are basically like, this is the world, and here's the center of it. And then the camera basically pans directly to them, and I know that's right. Honestly, girls should be confident like this. Like, yes, y'all are the center of the universe. They said there are billions of people on Earth, but obviously the center is wherever we happen to be standing, which in the case of this movie was California. Shout out my California people. And I really think that kind of set the tone for the whole movie because Mary-Kate and Ashley, like they really were those girls in this movie. So Mary-Kate and Ashley play Melanie and Allison Porter, who are 12 years old, turning 13, I think in a month, the movie says. So please keep the 12 years old in the back of your mind throughout this episode because the amount of freedom these children had, crazy. So at the beginning, Mel and Allie are living like really normal middle school lives. So like, you know, they're only caring about boys. They talk on the phone with their friends all the time. They go to the mall. They're excited about like their spring fling, like normal, regular 7th grade kind of stuff. But they also have a little menace in them. So there are 2 boys that they like named Kyle and Shane, but Kyle and Shane are already talking to these other girls, Harleen and Darlene, I think their names were, and they were twins too, which whatever. But instead of taking the L and being like, okay, maybe we shouldn't pursue them, Mel and Allie decide, you know what, let's just get rid of the competition, right? And by get rid of the competition, I mean, they convinced Helen and Darlene, whatever her name was, that the school lunch had E. coli and worms in it so that they would leave the table and that basically Mel and Allie could go to the table and talk to the boys. Yeah, diabolical. And the worst part is that little scheme actually worked because Kyle and Shane eventually asked them to spring fling. So the girls are thrilled. But meanwhile, the parents have been watching them focus on boys, on the phone all the time, wanting to go to the mall all the time. And they're like, okay, these children need to see more of the world, right? They want them to care about something outside of this tiny, like, middle school bubble, which fair enough. But like, their solution was Paris. They decided to send their 12-year-old daughters to France for spring break to stay with their grandfather without them. Now, yes, the grandfather is waiting for them when they get there, but they travel to the grandpa by themselves. And I thought that was strange. Like, you just sent them off to Paris completely alone, but whatever. Like, 1999 parenting was really, y'all are too obsessed with boys and the mall, so get on this international flight and go broaden your horizons. And Paris is such a funny choice for this particular problem. Like, you think your daughters care too much about shopping, so you sent them to the fashion capital of the world. You think they care too much about boys, and then within days, they find French boys. You did not change their interests. You upgraded their location, right? Like, what were we thinking as parents? But before the girls even leave, there is one major middle school crisis that they have. The girls are so disappointed that they're going to Paris because it means they have to cancel their plans to go to Spring Fling with Kyle and Shane. And they're deeply upset by this. Can you imagine? So anyway, they go to tell the boys in school the next day that they can't go. And these boys replace them within an hour with those same two girls that they told the school lunch had E. coli. And baby, I would have forgotten their names somewhere over the Atlantic, especially because these same boys could barely tell the twins apart. Like, I really don't know why they were so hung up on these boys. Like, I'm supposed to be heartbroken in France over a boy who needs help identifying me? Please be for real. And then one of the twins starts worrying that, like, okay, maybe nobody will ask them out again until they're in their 30s because of this. And the other one basically says, you know what we'll do, girl? She says, we'll just blame our parents, which, you know what, at 12, that was crazy for them to say. But you know what? Blaming our parents for most of our problems, I mean, we'd be justified in that because our parents do be causing a lot of our adult problems. But I digress. So they go off to Paris, right? So their grandfather is the US ambassador to France, which is another detail I had completely forgotten. Again, I was like a child when I watched this. But the grandpa, like, he clearly loves them, but he's really busy and honestly didn't see them for most of the movie. And he, like, assigned this assistant that he had, his name was Jeremy, to show the girls around Paris. And Jeremy has, like, a whole itinerary. Like, he's like, we're going to museums, doing educational activities. We're going to do some sightseeing. And this is wild to me because his job description definitely did not say babysitter. Like, he was definitely like a federal employee, but that man wanted a promotion. So, you know what? He was like, here we are. Now, the girls were not interested in spending their entire trip in museums. Like, this is not what they thought they signed up for, right? And this is also where the movie starts giving us very specific stereotypes for France and also French culture. So basically, we get a montage of them going to the museums, and then we also get them going to a dinner, and there's escargot, there's frog legs, and for some reason, there's baguettes everywhere. Like, new drinking game, whenever you see a baguette in this movie, take a shot. You will not survive the movie. But I mean, this movie was really how a lot of us found out people were over in France eating snails. I know that was you. And if that was you, you better hit the subscribe and get some retinol. Okay, but anyway, so their grandfather plans this nice welcome dinner, and the girls are turning their noses up at everything. And looking back, they were honestly so rude in this scene. The way I was raised, I could not imagine sitting at somebody's table making all the faces that they were making at the food. But their introduction to French culture just from the jump in this dinner was not great. And then they meet Brigitte. I want to say that was her name. Brigitte might be my favorite adult character in this entire movie. They meet her at a cafe, and the girls realize she's like this huge famous supermodel because they recognized her from like a fashion magazine that they had. And Brigitte says something like, don't tell me you spend all day looking at fashion magazines when she sees them. And I'm like, ma'am, this is literally how they know you. Like, what do you mean? And that line is so funny watching it back. But anyway, I really did love Brigitte as a character. I feel like this movie could have just stopped at her being a beautiful supermodel, but they don't. They made her a baddie, with brains. We learned that she studied international relations. She has advanced degrees, speaks multiple languages, and wants to go back to school for a doctorate. Like, on top of being beautiful, she was smart and she was so genuinely sweet with the girls. Like, she helps them so much. She talks to them like people. She doesn't get annoyed by them. I love that this movie doesn't have her written as a character that has to choose between being beautiful and mean or being smart and kind. Like, she's just all of those things. And I love that. And one of my favorite moments between Brigitte and the girls is when they go shopping. Listen, that shopping montage is one of the best parts of the entire movie. But once again, let's all remember, the mom and dad sent these girls to France because they are too obsessed with the mall and shopping. And now a literal supermodel is taking them shopping in Paris. Like, oh, what is going on? And speaking of the parents' plan completely backfiring, which it does, we also need to talk about Jean and Michael, the French boys and the girls' love interest in this movie, because apparently the universe was committed to making sure everything the parents wanted them to stop focusing on was exactly what they were going to focus on, just in a different country. So the twins meet Jean and Michael pretty quickly when they arrive in Paris. And these boys tell them they're going to show them the real Paris. And what that meant was taking them to get baguettes and then hang out by the Eiffel Tower. Like, what are we doing? This is like someone telling you, let me show you the real New York. And then they take you to Times Square. Like, sir, this is a brochure. This is not the real Paris. But Mel and Allie, they're having the time of their lives. They like Jean and Michael, and Jean and Michael like them. But the only problem is Jeremy. So Jeremy keeps being around because, again, he's their chaperone and watching them for this trip. That's literally his job, even though it's not in his job description. So the girls decide Jeremy needs something else to do. And apparently that something else is Brigitte. So these 12-year-old girls set their chaperone up with a supermodel so he could stop third wheeling them with their French boys. Listen, everybody in Paris was getting a man that week if it was up to these girls. But the gag is Jeremy and Brigitte actually have insane chemistry. Like, watching this as an adult, I was so invested in their story. Like, I was giggling, kicking my feet because their dynamic was so cute. Like, Jeremy is like that sweet, nerdy policy guy who gets really excited talking about his work. And I feel like Brigitte looks like she just walked out of a fashion campaign, but she's also highly educated and is genuinely interested in what he has to say and contribute to what he has to say because it's stuff she studied in school. And listen, give me a movie about a nerdy guy and the hot girl who everybody assumes would never look his way, except she actually likes him because he is smart and interesting, just like she is. And I'm going to be sat and eat that up every time. And I just love their storyline and them getting to know each other. I think also what I liked about this movie is that Brigitte doesn't make herself less impressive so Jeremy can feel worthy of her. Like, she's still Brigitte, like, and she doesn't try to be anyone else. Like, she's stunning, she's educated, she has her own career. She just also happens to like him. And I feel like this storyline was really ahead of its time. Like, that whole relationship worked for me way more than I remembered, and especially watching it as an adult in 2026. I also want to mention at the end of the movie, during the bloopers, they show the actor who plays Brigitte and Jeremy during their kissing scene in the movie, and the actor playing Jeremy like pulls away from her and basically goes, wait, this is a kid's movie? Because they were just like so into it together. Like, y'all, the chemistry was insane. Give us a sequel on them. That's what I want. But anyway, let's get back to the plot. While Jeremy is falling in love, Mel and Allie are running around Paris with Gina Michael, which this must be part of the formula for like every Olsen movie. They're like, these girls need to be off with two random boys that they'll never see again. And, you know, they're like riding mopeds around the city with these boys. And again, they're 12 and this is the 90s. So there's no smartphones. There's no location sharing. The parents are across the Atlantic. Like the 90s was operating under a completely different set of rules. All of the freedom that they had, my parents would never. But the girls and the boys end up somewhere that they're not supposed to be when they're, you know, bouncing around Paris, and they get caught trespassing and wind up in police custody. And this is where I realize how insane the progression of this movie actually is. So let's do a little recap, right? The girls arrived in Paris. They met a supermodel. They found French boys. They set their chaperone up with said supermodel so he would leave them alone. They rode mopeds around Paris. And now they are in police custody. And somehow we are not even at the craziest part of this movie yet, because now we need to talk about the Clean Water Treaty. So this plot point was buried somewhere so deep in my memory that I genuinely could not believe what I was watching. Earlier in the movie, we learned that Jeremy had been working on this whole proposal about clean water in France. He really cares about it, and he tries to get their grandpa, who's also his boss, to read it, but the grandpa basically keeps rushing him off. Then Jeremy gets fired because the girls managed to disappear on his watch, and like I said, they were in police custody, right? With those two random French boys, which honestly makes sense, like you were supposed to be watching them. But the crazy part is, after he leaves, the girls actually read his proposal, and that becomes important because the grandpa is basically preparing for a huge final dinner where he is hoping to convince the French foreign minister to support the Clean Water Treaty. But at the dinner, the foreign minister is just like not interested in anything the grandpa has to say on this issue. So Mel and Allie decide, you know what? We're going to help. And their plan is insane. These children arrange for the foreign minister to be served nasty tap water, basically so he has to experience the problem himself. And the water was brown, y'all. The water was brown. And he drinks it and gets understandably mad and wants an explanation for why he is drinking water that looks like poo-poo. So the girls start making the case for why he needs to support the Clean Water Treaty using the information they learned from Jeremy's proposal. Now, I need everybody to sit with this for just a second. These 12-year-olds had the French minister drinking nasty poo-poo colored tap water at dinner just to prove why he needed to sign the Clean Water Treaty. Greta Thunberg wasn't even born yet, and the Olsen twins were already applying pressure. And somehow it works. That is the part that gets me. Like, the grandpa has been doing diplomacy professionally for a while, but it's these two children who read one proposal, watched some legal TV, and brought physical evidence to dinner who gets this man to reconsider his position. I know grandpa went to bed staring at the ceiling, because what are you supposed to do with that? But it also changes the relationship, his relationship with the girls significantly. Like, he realizes, oh, like, you know, they're not just, you know, these girls who are focused on boys, shopping. Like, he's like, they actually have things to say. They are real people. And he starts listening to them more, and their relationship kind of shifts for the later part of the film. And through that, they were able to bring Jeremy back because, like I said, he got fired, and he gets credit for the work that he's been doing. And not only does he get his job back, he also gets promoted. And basically the movie ends with him and Brigitte officially together. So somehow These girls help move an international policy discussion forward and fix their chaperone's love life all in a week. Like, they got a lot done. And their grandpa is like so proud of them. So he's like, you know what? I'll let y'all go to your little dance with Jean and Michael, which also gave us Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen's first on screen kiss. And honestly, I'm just glad that the boys were actually kids because that was not always the case in their movies. Like in Holiday in the Sun, their love interests were like, I think between 18 and like 22 or something like that. And they were like, I think like 15 or 16. Like it was very weird. But I digress. Mel and Allie get their cute little Paris romance moment, and then eventually it's time to go home. And I actually really like what the movie does when they get back because who comes running back when they come home? Kyle and Shane, the same boys who could barely tell them apart and replace them as dates for spring fling in less than an hour after finding out they couldn't go. And now suddenly, now that these girls are back from Paris, they're interested in them. But you know what? I love that Mel and Allie aren't even pressed anymore about these boys. They're like looking in a book at all of these different places in the world that they want to visit when the boys drop by. And they're just like, not interested in anything the boys have to say. And the girls basically give them a taste of their own medicine and act like they can't remember which boy is which. And I laughed so hard at that part. But I also guess their parents' plan kind of worked because keep in mind, at the beginning of the movie, missing one middle school dance felt like the end of the world. But by the end, they realized there's literally an entire world outside of Kyle and Shane and middle school. Now, did getting there require international travel, a supermodel, French boys, mopeds, police custody, and a diplomatic dispute over drinking water? Yes, it did. But this wouldn't be an Olsen movie if it didn't. And you know what? They got where they needed to be, and the parents' goal was met. And I just really enjoyed rewatching this movie. I think it still holds up. And I realized Passport to Paris really ran so Emily and Paris could walk. It was so fun watching this. And I can't believe I didn't remember most of this. And my quick little run through about what I love the most is Brigitte. I thought Jeremy was adorable. I think their relationship works. I hope they're still together. I think it was cute that the grandpa got his own little arc. And I felt like the girls genuinely grew at the end. And then for some reason, I feel like the environmental diplomacy happening in the middle of all of it also worked, especially for the 90s. Like, I went into this expecting cute outfits and a few jokes that I had forgotten. Instead, I spent half the movie wondering how these girls went from worrying about middle school dances to influencing French environmental policy in the span of 1 week. Clearly, I cannot trust my memory of these movies, which means we have to keep going. I think I'm going to do Our Lips Are Sealed because that one needs to be revisited because all I remember is Australia and witness protection and really not much else. If there is another one that you guys are interested in me doing, I'm really lucky. Someone sent me all of the Olsen twins movies basically from when we were growing up, so I can deep dive any of those. Just let me know. And this has been another super fun episode of Things I'll Take It From Here, where we talk about the stories that made us feel something. And Passport to Paris definitely made me feel something. And also my knees hurt. And I think that's because I'm realizing I'm old since this was a 90s movie. But we're going to move on and not think about it too much. Give me some retinal recommendations in the comments. And follow me on social media at takeitfromhere.media. And that's on Instagram and TikTok because I'll be posting some of my favorite moments and memes from the rewatch over there. And I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.